afraid when we got the PhD program going, I was just a little not, they were going to ignore the undergrads. And to some extent, that tended to happen for a while. So that everybody loves to work with the PhD students. And so we still have a strong, stronger and stronger PhD program. It's just gotten better and better. And we've got the undergrads back in focus, at least some of my people have, we're working with. So like we do, my lab's called the Behavior Analysis Training System, and we have about 15 undergrad departmental honors theses every year. And you know, a big chunk of what we're doing is training, in my lab, is training undergrad students to work in early intervention autism programs, and kind of focusing around that. So they're a big part of our concern and interest.
So how has that changed since when you first arrived? How has that student experience changed? If you are getting a degree in, say you are an undergraduate, what was training like then versus what it's like now?
In some senses, it was more behavior analytic in the past. In some senses, it's more behavior analytic now. Back in the day, originally, our introductory psychology course was just pure behavior analysis. In fact, elementary principles of behavior, which Whaley and I wrote, was for the introductory psych course. Strictly behavior analysis. The rat lab, 500 rats a semester learn to press a lever with 1,000 students, 2 students per rat we're teaching them. And then the second course, the child psych course, was we used Bijou and Bear, and that was strictly behavior analysis. Then our third course, abnormal, we used, I think, Krasner and Ullman. That was strictly behavior analysis. And Jack Michael was supposed to teach social psych. He did that from a behavioral perspective. He did that for a year, and then he switched over to teaching Skinner's verbal behavior to college sophomores.
That's a fantastic undertaking.
It turns out it was too fantastic, and it ends up being probably appropriate for our doctoral level students to kind of evaluate and evolve that, or our master's level students maybe. Since then, we have a more traditional intro course, more traditional child psych course, more traditional abnormal psych course. But sorry about that. Our higher level courses are just getting tighter and tighter. So we have a very good junior level principles of behavior course, a very good applied behavior analysis course, and great practica, and some other pretty tight higher level courses. And what's happening over the next year or two, we're moving the elementary principles of behavior, the principles of behavior course, down to the freshman level once again, so that if you're wanting to major in psychology, you have the option of starting right day one with behavior analysis, and getting involved in autism on day 2 or experimental or whatever the options are that are available. And then, like the second semester you're there as a freshman, so you could be intensely involved throughout your career in behavior analysis. I'm just really excited about that possibility.
Sounds like you wind up with really well-prepared students at the end of that program.
Turned on, well-prepared, yes.
So I guess one more thing I'd like to ask, and that is, well, 2 things. So let me not jump the gun. The first of the 2 things, first of the last 2 things, the penultimate thing, is how do you think, or do you get a sense that your experiences today as a behavior analyst are different qualitatively than your early experiences? Do you think behavior analysis at WMU has changed that much, or is it kind of more similar? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, the field has completely changed. And Western has reflected that change in the field. This, when we started, was before autism was invented.
Mm-hmm.
When we started, it was when we started, it was before the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis was invented. When I was probably a junior in college, my professor Jim Dinsmore came into a departmental colloquium waving a copy of JAB, Journal of Experimental Analysis Behavior, the very first issue. He was excited about it. That was a big, big deal because behavior analysts were having trouble getting their articles published, and so that was a big thing. And like then, when I was in graduate school, there were these two guys who published an article called "Psychiatric Nurse as a Behavioral Engineer," and that was Ion and Michael, of course. And that was really the first applied behavior analysis article ever published. It was published in JAB, Experimental Journal. And I don't think it was something that was about to happen. If they hadn't done it, I don't know that it would have happened. Other people were putting, crazy people in Skinner boxes on schedules of reinforcement. That wasn't applied behavior analysis. That was like the human operant. Or putting cute little kids in Skinner boxes, in essence. But that wasn't applied behavior analysis. So Michael and Ion, 59 maybe, 1959 maybe, in my view, started applied behavior analysis. If they hadn't done it, we may not have ever had applied behavior analysis. So I was trained as an experimental analyst, and I did experimental analysis at Denison and at Western. And as then JABA came out, and then autism was invented, and Ivar Lovaas was invented, and then Catherine Maurice was invented, and her "Let Me Hear Your Voice," and then things changed. And not only were we dealing with applied behavior analysis, now we had this really fantastic field within applied behavior analysis, early intervention with autistic kids, or children with autism if you prefer. And so that's transformed our field, and as the field has transformed, we have transformed it at Western Michigan University.
Okay, so now this is the real last question. Words of wisdom or advice that you would want to see present-day students of behavior analysis do?
So you didn't tell me you were going to ask that. Yeah, I would like for present-day students and present-day behavior analysts to study the principles of behavior. Always think in terms of the principles of behavior. Always try to, whatever you do, analyze it in terms of the principles of behavior. When you're looking at crazy things that are going on, try to figure out what are the basic underlying behavioral processes behind that. When you're designing behavioral interventions, try to think about what the basic underlying behavioral processes are based on that. Probably I would like to see a lot more deep, serious thought about stimulus control and all its complexities and subtleties. Probably also learned or secondary reinforcement and all of its subtleties and complexities. I think those are very important issues. Whether you're an experimental, applied, or a practitioner. Those are important things that I think we're not quite drilling down deep enough yet.
Okay. And if you have time.
I have plenty of time.
Okay. If not, we could edit it out. Do you have any funny stories or memories you want to share with us from the early days?
Now, you promised me that you wouldn't ask that question, because I don't have any funny stories.
I
and
forgot.
you're humiliating me.
We'll cut it.
No, you can leave that in, I think it's cute.
Welcome to Candid Camera.
We're cool.
Did I say that? Really?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I said you said it.
All right.
And I'm the guy being interviewed.
It's true. Here we have Dr. Malott. Thank you for telling your, sharing
It's
your
been
story
great.
and
Enjoyed
sharing
it a
your
lot.
time. Thank you.
That was really great.
Thank you.
All right. I was sorry about the repeated thing. That's probably going to ding it me too. I was trying to.
That's all right, it just puts it